Hello, hello, Marta.
Hello.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our Shide Holiday Happy Hour. We are so happy you chose to spend your Friday night with us. Thanks for watching a little video of me and Marta as children. I have to say, I think your parents did a bit better job dressing you for the holidays than mine did. You looked very precious. So for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Chelsea. I am part of the hospitality team here at Shide Vineyards, and most recently I have promoted myself to cheese and wine lover. And of course, as always, I have the wonderful honor of being joined by the wine educator and talented winemaker, Miss Marta.
Well, happy holidays, everybody, and thank you so much for joining in with us tonight for the festivities. I hope you enjoy them.
Your background looks very festive.
Oh, thank you.
So for those of you who have been on our other happy hours that we've done, this one is a little bit different. Normally we taste through some of our new club releases, but because it's the holidays and we've got nowhere to go and nothing to do, we thought we would liven it up a little bit with some good food and some good wine. So the layout for tonight, like I said, different. In a minute or so, I'm going to move over to that screen there and show you guys how to put together a little charcuterie board. So just a little tutorial. And while I do that, Marta is going to do a bit of a food wine pairing, talk through the wines that we're drinking, the meats and cheese that are local that we're tasting, and then give us a little 101 on what we shouldn't be doing when we're pairing our food and wine. Then after, in the spirit of all things local, we are just going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about Monterey, where the wine comes from, where the food comes from, where the cheese and meat are coming from. And a lot of you had trips out here that you couldn't complete because of everything going on. So we just want to bring a little Monterey to you. And of course, I know probably half of you hopped on for the raffle that's at the end. So if you did hop on for that or just to listen to Marta, feel free to just sit back and relax. No need to build a board. Just feel free to listen in and we'll definitely get to that raffle at the end. Other housekeeping, all I think is that there is that Q&A button at the bottom for you guys. So if you do have any questions during this, please feel free to be interactive with us, ask us questions. We'll try to answer everything we can. We did get some emails earlier, so I wrote those down. So at the end, when we have time, I'll get to those questions as well. And if it was something that we answered in a previous virtual tasting, I'll just have Marta email you the answers to that. I think that covers it for the housekeeping. So before I turn off my video and head over to that screen there, what did you choose for us to drink tonight, Marta?
Well, I have the 2019.
Did you already start without me?
No. 2019 Sauvignon Blanc. There we go. And cheers. This is one of my favorite wines. It's an aromatic white wine. It has a lot of citrus, a lot of tropical notes, and a real bright acidity, which is, I think, one of the reasons that makes it such a good food wine. It was fermented cold to keep a lot of those aromatics. So it's just really one of my go-to wines. I think it pairs a lot with a lot of different kinds of food. So cheers, everyone. Thank you for coming, and let's watch Chelsea get to work.
All right, I'll stop drinking and I'll get to work. Let me turn my camera off and see you guys over there. All righty. Okay, guys, so when you are putting a board together, it is actually kind of important to note that size does matter. So a board this size, if you did get the package, a board this size is going to be a little bit smaller and would probably only serve about 2 to 4 people, depending on how hungry you are. So I'm going to limit it to 1 ramekin and 2 cheeses. With the cheeses, the rule of thumb is to usually do 1 hard cheese. So today we're going to be doing the local Monterey Jack. and then 1 soft cheese. I chose a plain goat cheese so that I can sort of decorate it at the end. But again, whatever suits your mood is absolutely fine. Also, board etiquette. If you have a hard cheese, you are supposed to cut the hard cheese ahead of time for your guests. But if your guests are your kids or your husband or wife and you think the board looks prettier without it, please feel free to not cut it and go ahead and just put the wedge out on its own. But I did pre-cut everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and place the hard cheese here on this side of the board here. And Marta, if you want to talk a little bit about the cheese and the wine that we're pairing with.
So the cheese that Chelsea chose, I hope you can see it. This is a from Shock Dairy, and this is a local dairy that was founded in 1944 in the Salinas Valley. And at that time, there were hundreds of dairies in the Salinas Valley. And because of the rich soil and our moderate climate, it really made for raising happy cows. So there was lots of dairies, and they currently are one of the few that are remaining. And they only have 80 purebred Holstein cows, which they milk by hand every day. Chelsea chose a goat cheese for her soft cheese. And I think this is really one of those match made in heaven kind of wine pairings. The acidity of the wine balances the acidity of the cheese. It's just a really, really wonderful pairing. And what makes cheese we could have a whole class on the different types of cheeses. Cheese is often classified by the country of origin, the kind of milk it's made from, such as goat, cow, even camel. It's classified by moisture content, by fat content, the process it took to make it, and whether it was mold ripened or not. So this fresh goat cheese is also called chèvre. Chèvre means goat in French, and is often ready to eat in a week or two. So if you happen to have access to goat's milk, this is a cheese that you can actually make yourself, and because it doesn't need to be aged at all. And that looks very tempting, Chelsea. We might have to try a little bit of that.
Yeah, if you want to try the goat cheese with the Sauvignon Blanc. So one thing I didn't mention that I will mention really quickly is if you did actually purchase the Monterey Shock Jack cheese, I cut it in half because the board was so small. So that's why it's not taking up as much space. I definitely want to utilize all areas of the board. And so I cut it in half and then just kept the end piece because I think it gives it a nice little round corner to it. So next what I have for you guys is the meat selection. So you really do technically need meat on the board to call it a charcuterie board. This is going to sound kind of gross, but it's a French term, and char means flesh and cou means cooked. So it's really cooked flesh if you think about it. I know that's kind of disgusting, but it's also just a nice reminder that it doesn't have to be anything fancy or intimidating. It's just a fun board to play around with, and it's literally just cooked flesh. So what I'm going to do is normally with a bigger board, I'd have 2 different types of meat. I'd have maybe a salami and some prosciutto, or you could do capicola. There's all sorts of meats that you could add to this. But with the smaller board, I'm just going to stick with our turkey salami. And I'm going to create kind of a river down it, which is going to give it a little bit of structure. A river is also probably kind of a gross term to use with meat, especially salami can be really fun, and you can do a lot of cool things. You can also put different pilings on different areas if you've got more than one meat. So with the one meat today, I'm going to start here and kind of slowly work my way down. Marta, if you want to talk a little bit about the meat that we have today.
Yeah, this salami was made by Postman's, which is another family-owned local business, and they're very proud of their Italian heritage. The word salami actually it originates from the word sal, which means salt, which was often used in the processing for making salami. And this is a turkey salami, so it's leaner than most salamis that you would get. It's dark meat mixed with some spices. It also it has uncured, so it has no preservatives added to it. And when we talk from the food and wine perspective, the food perspective, a charcuterie plate has mainly just two components, fat and salt, sadly, but the two really good components. And both of these are in cheese and salami. And what happens is the fats that are in the cheese tend to coat the inside of your mouth. And so it kind of reduces your perception of taste. And traditionally, cheese was served at the end of a meal, often with what was left of the red wine on the table. And one of the reasons for that is that red wine has tannin in it. And tannin comes from the barrels and it comes from the red grape skins. And it's the bitter, astringent component that you will taste in certain wines. And when you're eating cheese, the fat kind of coats your mouth. And then when you take a sip of wine, the tannins bind with those fat molecules and sort of act as a palate cleanser. So that's why they pair so nicely together. So I guess I ought to think about opening up that Odd Lot Red pretty soon. So God, that's a beautiful river of salami you got going there, Chelsea.
Well, thank you. Working on it over here. Gonna have some leftover for sure as well.
Well, that never hurt.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so next what we have is our crunch. So we've got our ramekin, we've got our hard cheese, our soft cheese, and then we've got our meat on this board. So the next thing that we're gonna add is some crackers. If you were gonna put any type of vegetable on the board, this is a really good time to do it. However, I ate healthy for breakfast and lunch, I had a salad, so I'm gonna skip straight to the crackers. Today, I have a beet cracker, which is a really pretty pop of color, and then I've got these gorgonzola crackers. I mostly pick these because I personally just really love gorgonzola crackers, but they're also a lot smaller in size, so with a smaller board, you definitely want smaller crackers. No matter what board I do, I usually try to break up the color. I try to add a little bit of different flavor profile as well. So you're gonna get the saltiness from the cracker, a tiny bit of sweet from the chips. They still have some salt as well. Here, I say have fun, overboard it with the cheese and the cracker. Don't really worry about making it too much. I even kind of like when it falls off the board a little. So with the two different colors, I'm gonna kind of place little piles all over so that the colors pop from each other.
And with crackers, you get more salt, and salt changes the flavor of the food, and it also changes how foods react with wine. And if you have a salty food and you have a wine that has some tannin, you'll notice that the salt tends to neutralize the tannin, so it makes it less astringent or less bitter. Also, the salt can affect the acidity. So if you're drinking this Sauvignon Blanc, you'll notice, and you're having some salty crackers, you might notice that that bright acidity is not quite as sharp as it was when you first tasted it. So on the charcuterie board, we have salt, not only from the crackers, but the cheese and the salami. And the other wine pairing that we have tonight with the charcuterie board is our Odd Lot Red. Now, as a winemaker, we make this, such a lovely sound. So as a winemaker, we make this wine to not be any particular variety dominant. And this blend has 23 different varieties in it. So we get all kinds of different flavors and different textures. And that's kind of what we're trying to aim for as a wine. So I'm going to have a little bit of a little taste here. And I'm going to check out this food and wine pairing and see how Chelsea's doing. Her board is looking beautiful.
Well, thank you, Marta. I hope that you're doing a lot of talking. So I certainly hope that you are working on your board as well, I must say.
I cheated. I had to make mine before because I knew I wouldn't be able to keep up with you. So when you have friends over, how do you handle that? Do you let the board run dry or do you
Gosh, that honestly depends. So if I'm making a board and it's more just an appetizer, then then what it's gonna do for me is just, if it's just an appetizer, I'll probably let it run a bit dry so I can see when it's time to move on to the next the next meal. If this is kind of the main meal and it's more just an appy style happy hour party, I'm definitely going to refill it as I go. If guests keep coming in, I want it to keep looking full. Of course, I say all this when guests are allowed back in my house. Of course, Marta, I'm not having any guests in my house right now. So this would be
your husband.
My husband, yes. I would refill it for my husband. I guess we could go ahead and say that for sure. Okay. So next what I have is the little accoutrements. So you kind of have the main part of your board done at this part. We started with the ramekin, the cheeses, the meat, the crackers. Now I'm gonna fill it in. You really could fill it in with almost anything. There's so much that you could use. You could do dates, grapes, strawberries, literally whatever floats your boat. Today I picked raspberries, and then I've got these awesome honey sesame seed almonds. So I'm gonna start placing them just in little areas all over the board so that there's nothing left showing on the board. Again, smaller board. I want to keep the cool Shide logo vineyards out here. But that's more where I'm going to do that. And then we have some Lula's chocolates, which are local to Monterey County as well. I picked these ones because they have some pretty pop of color. If you haven't noticed, I'm going for more of a red holiday theme here. So I'm going to go ahead and just add these to the board. If you want to talk a little bit maybe about chocolate, or
it's getting more full all the time. I'm amazed you can get all that on your board. So Chelsea's adding the bits of sweet, which really balance nicely with the salty component. And these are from Lulu's Chocolates, which is another great local company. Lulu's was founded by the grandson. His grandmother started making chocolates in the early 1900s. And in 2004, he decided that, he wanted to make chocolates too. So he started this company, and he makes these beautiful chocolates. And he also makes some of my favorites, which are the salted caramels, which are really yummy. So Chelsea, when you're doing this, when you think of this and when you're planning, how do you figure out how much meat and how much cheese you're going to need per person?
This kind of definitely depends on who I'm serving. So if I've got a football team coming over or something like that, obviously you do want a little bit more.
A bigger board.
Yes, a bigger board probably. This board would probably not be good for that crowd. But in general, 3 to 6 ounces of meat and cheese is a pretty good starting place if you're looking for how much to serve people. 3 ounces if you're looking to do more of a appetizer style board, and then up to 6 ounces if you're looking to do more of a meal style board.
That looks beautiful.
How's that wine over there? I feel like my glass is still full. I'm not even getting to drink this while I'm doing it.
I'm entranced watching you put that together. It's beautiful.
Okay, all right. So I'm kind of finishing up here. I'll probably keep messing with it for a minute or two. But the only thing we have left, Marta, is the garnish and the dip. So again, garnish, you can use really whatever you want. You can use rosemary, sage, any other greenery. I've used flowers from my pot. Disclaimer, you probably should have everything edible on your board. I don't always do that. And then you've got your dip. The dip is so fun. You really can use whatever you want for the dip. So you could do hummus, ranch. My husband's favorite is the buffalo chicken dip. And but today, because I've got my color theme going, I'm also going to be using just a red roasted pepper, which I think will go really good with the gorgonzola and also with the beet dip. So while I finish this, I do have to ask, since you just kind of schooled us a little bit, what would be your favorite pairing, food and wine, and then what would be your least favorite pairing?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc, and I really love the crisp acidity in white wine. And I think probably one of my all-time favorite pairings would be like a Sancerre, which is the Sauvignon Blanc from France, paired with some nice fresh oysters. That would be a really wonderful meal for me. I think my least favorite pairing is sadly something that people do an awful lot of, and that is champagne and wedding cake. And the reason for that is that champagne is very acidic, and wedding cake is usually very sweet. So neither one makes the other one taste good. So the champagne would taste even more acidic, and the cake would taste even more sweet. So brides out there, if you want to have something pair with your wedding cake, try to find a wine that is as sweet, or maybe have a cake that's not as sweet, and save the champagne for a toast.
All right, I am just finishing up here.
That's beautiful.
I do have a question. What about chocolate and wine?
Well, it depends on if it's milk chocolate or if it's dark chocolate. Dark chocolate, because it is more bitter, I think it would pair much better with heavier red wines like a Cabernet. But again, with sweet wine, with anything sweet, I am more inclined to want to have a wine that is almost comparable in sweetness, because I think it pairs better than trying to pair something that's so that doesn't have any sweetness with something that's very sweet.
That was actually just a personal question. Nobody even asked that. I was just wondering myself.
Oh, well, that's a good question.
Okay, it looks like I have kind of finished up here. So one thing I didn't mention is, especially with the Christmas style board, I just like to put a little bit of pomegranate seeds all over. I wouldn't necessarily eat these. I just think they look really, really pretty.
I'd eat them.
You do want to be careful with these, and with boards that are wooden, sometimes they can stain a little bit, but they're awesome. So I'm just going to finish off here. I'm hoping that if anyone really is following along and doing the board, please go ahead and tag us. I'd love to repost what other people's boards look like. Okay.
I'm not sure you want to see mine.
Oh, I do. We are going to get there, Marta. Okay, so I think I am finished my board. I've been doing all this work and not drinking enough, so I am going to pop it back on over here. Let's see. I'm back.
And he's back.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so we do have a few questions that I'm seeing I missed while I was busy at work. Larry asked what the main varietals are in Odd Lot. I can start by saying, Larry, there's 23 varietals in the 2018 Odd Lot Red.
And if he sends his address, we'll send him the whole shebang.
Okay, we'll get your name down, Larry, so we can send you absolutely everything. But that one is going to be a lot. I want to say Petite Sirah might be the heaviest.
I think the highest percentage was at 10 or 11%. So when you have 23 varieties, no one variety is going to stand out.
Okay, and then we have another question. Somebody asked what my opinion on adding bread or baguette to a board would be. Absolutely, but a bigger board. I would use a bigger board to add that style of bread, just because it would take up so much space. And then you could put goat cheese on it, bruschetta. There's a lot you could do with that, 100%. And then we have a question for Marta. Why does wine taste bitter when I pair it with chocolate?
It's because you've got something sweet, and so you really need chocolate is sweet, and you should really be trying to look for something like a port to pair it with, or a late harvest, because you're trying to pair that it's something that's sweet with something that's astringent and bitter, and they're conflicting. And so the sweetness is going to make the Cabernet or whatever wine you're drinking that has the tannin taste even more bitter.
Okay, awesome. So I first want to see your board, actually. I forgot I haven't even seen it. I'm going to crack open the Odd Lot Red because I'm definitely going to start noshing on my board in a second.
My river looks kind of like the landslide.
You got to hold it up a little higher.
Landslide came down upon it. I realized that the board was small when I started throwing things on, and I said, well, I've just covered up everything. So, but I tried to follow Chelsea's advice, but mine definitely isn't as artistic as yours is.
I think your board still looks beautiful. Any board is beautiful as long as it tastes good. That is all that matters. Okay, so I have to say, Marta, and to everyone watching, that there is kind of a reason that I thought about doing this whole board charcuterie thing. Basically, for me, it was our Wine Down Wednesdays that we used to do in the Carmel tasting room. So we used to have exclusive to club members only this time when I would put out this very large charcuterie board. I do believe we have a photo. There we go.
Oh, how festive.
Yes, and I will disclaim, when this picture was taken, Marta, the board had already been eaten. I would not leave all these holes in the board. So this was already, the board had been eaten a bit, and I did refill throughout the night on this one. But it was a time for wine club members to get together with their friends, with people they haven't met before, and do just a little mix and mingle. So obviously we can't do that now, which is why I thought it would be fun to kind of bring the board and the food and the meat home to you guys and do it virtually. And also, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Monterey, you know, what makes Monterey so special, the wine that you guys are drinking, what makes it taste so good. And that's why we brought the local meat and cheese to you. But we do have some things that I'm super happy to talk about in regards to Monterey.
So speaking of Monterey, I'm curious, what I know you're from New Jersey originally. So what brought you here?
Oh gosh. Okay. So this is not educational, Marta. I am from New Jersey. I lived in San Diego for 8 years, and my husband wanted to drag me back to cold New Jersey. I'm pretty sure they have like a foot of snow right now. And I did not want to move back there and have to get my car shoveled out of the snow. And he had family up in the Bay Area. So we were kind of lucky enough to look up there, and I said, let's compromise. You get family, I get the sunshine. And it's super corny but true story. We were watching Big Little Lies, and I was like, ooh, that's really pretty. I could drive across the Bixby Bridge on my way to work. Let's move there. So we moved here, and if for anyone who doesn't know, that's really not on your way anywhere in Monterey unless you're going down to Big Sur, but it's not most people's normal commute. Still beautiful though, so I still love Monterey. But Marta, you are the OG. I'm a newbie here in town. You were born and raised. So after looking at that fun photo this morning, I'm kind of curious if you have any fun local Monterey stories growing up.
Well, you know, when you asked me that, I had to think back, but Monterey used to have a train that went daily from Monterey to San Francisco. And the depot is down by a Fisherman's Wharf, for those of you that are familiar with our area. The depot is currently a brew pub, and the train tracks have been turned into our recreational walking and biking trail. But back when I was young, they used to have the Santa train at this time of year. And so what they would do is they would get all the kids, they'd load the kids onto a car, into the cars, maybe 2 cars, and they would have Santa and all the elves, and none of our parents could go. And so then they would take off to go towards Pacific Grove. It's a distance of maybe 4 miles, and we would go down to a turntable, and there would be singing and Santa handing out candy and presents. And then we would go around the turntable, and then we would come back. And it was always very festive. And for us as children, it was a big adventure because we were on the train without our parents. So we were probably getting away with murder.
That's amazing. I love that story. I think now even me and my husband, we walk down the old railroad track.
Yeah.
We walk our dog there. Sorry, I'm actually just moving the board closer because now that we're just talking, I'm going to be eating as well. Okay, so another question, just Monterey related, is even when I lived in San Diego, but I know people all over the country, they think of California wine region and they think of Napa and Sonoma, and Monterey doesn't usually come into people's minds. So I'm curious when really Monterey showed up in the wine scene and how that happened.
Well, in the 1940s, a couple of University of California researchers did a lot of work on climate and grape varieties and growing regions within California. And they kind of determined that Monterey had similar climate and similar soil to the Burgundy region in France. Then in about the 1960s, people started moving away from sweet wine, which had been kind of in vogue for a long time. And they started embracing higher quality premium grapes grown along the coastal regions to make table wine. And so we didn't really see any large, we probably in the late 60s, we had maybe 2,000 acres total in Monterey County. And then in the 1970s, you started to see some large plantings. So we had Jekyll, Jaylor, Almaden, and then Scheid started planting in 1972.
Interesting. And that actually, that was my question, but that question kind of ties into something that I had emailed. So I'm going to find that for a second. And that was there a defining moment that really brought Monterey and California into the wine scene?
Well, for me, it has to be the 1976 tasting that was put on by Stephen Spurrier that has now been called the Judgment of Paris. And this was two blind tastings, 10 wines each, California Chardonnays pitted against French Burgundies and California Cabernets pitted against French Bordeaux.
I knew this was gonna be your answer, so I did have my producer pull up a photo for this one. Ah, there you go. Okay.
And they brought in all the, the French sommeliers and restaurateurs and wine critics. And much to the chagrin of the French, the winners were the 1973 Stag's Leap Cabernet, which is from Napa, and the 1973 Chateau Montelena Chardonnay, which is also from Napa. But also in that group was the 1974 Chalon Chardonnay, which was made by the oldest bonded winery in Monterey County. So Stephen Spurrier was kind of on the hook after that, and they didn't let him buy any wine futures in France for almost a year. It didn't even really want him back in the trade. And people didn't, until that point, I don't think people really believed that any place other than France had the right microclimate, the right soil to be able to produce quality wine. So I guess you could say that we've proved them wrong.
And Stephen in the photo is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Looking directly at us there.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, all right, there we go. Yes, he's the handsome lad with the long hair there. Yes, very cool. So, okay, we know now that we obviously have wines that compete with other wines all over the country, but what makes our climate so amazing? Why can we do so many different things?
I think the biggest thing that affects our region is the maritime climate. And what causes that is the Blue Canyon, which is a very deep canyon right off the coast. Yeah, and indeed, we have a picture. That's the Salinas.
It's magic, Marta, it's magic.
And that's the Salinas River that is creating that canyon. It is 2 miles deep, almost equivalent to the Grand Canyon. And it goes out to the Pacific Ocean for 95 miles. And so you get a lot of upwelling of cold water from this canyon. And this creates a maritime, distinct maritime influence, but it's something that we locals would call fog. And so what happens is that the northern part of the valley, and I think we have a picture of that as well, the northern part of the valley is very cool. And this is where we can plant our cooler varieties such as Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And then since the fog only goes down the valley so far, and kind of acts as the valley's air conditioning down in the warmer regions, down in the San Antonio Valley and Hames and so forth, we can plant the heavier red varieties such as Cabernet and Petit Syrah.
Very cool. I actually was just reading through some questions. This is going to go back to the Judgment in Paris, but Jim wants to know what you think of the movie Bottle Shock. I loved it, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
My best friend in college was Kevin Barrett, and the Barretts owned Chateau Mount Elena when Bottle Shock was done. And Bottle Shock, there is a bunch of fabrications in that movie. But when I asked my friend Kevin what was true, he said, well, my dad was really that big of a jerk. Because there's a scene where he's boxing his son, and he said, my dad was really that hard.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I like the movie. I thought it was a good movie. Okay, so how big are we in terms of the other wine regions in California? Because I know, again, and this, my stats could be wrong, but I know that, again, we always talk about Napa has that name, but I think they only produce like 4% of California's.
Can I give you my Monterey wine joke? Down in Monterey, when people bring up Napa, we say, oh, you mean the auto parts store? Sorry, that's prejudicial, I'm sure. But currently, Monterey farms roughly 46,000 acres, and that's less than Sonoma, which has about 60,000 acres, and a little bit more than Napa, which is a little bit more, 40 something. And we produce 53 different varieties, and because we have such a varied climate, that's why we can grow so many different varieties. Scheid farms 39 different varieties, just us. Our biggest acreage is in Chardonnay. About 40% of our total acreage is in Chardonnay. And the second biggest acreage is in Pinot Noir. We have almost 7,000 acres of Pinot Noir planted in Monterey County, and that's more Pinot Noir that's grown in Monterey County than any other growing region in California.
That is quite impressive, I must say.
A lot of good Pinots.
Yeah, right. Well, you were born and raised here, so obviously that's, I'm guessing, why you started here. But with all the places you could have gone, what kept you in Monterey?
I think what I like most about Monterey is the diversity, and the diversity of not only agriculture, but geography and recreational. The Salinas Valley is known not only for grapes and producing fine wine, but it also is considered the salad bowl of the world. We produce 56% of all the head lettuce that's eaten in the United States, 90% of all the artichokes, and then we have serious acreage of strawberries and broccoli. I think we might even have a picture of some of those crops.
Producer's lagging over here. Let's see some strawberry. There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
So we've got the strawberries, we've got the artichokes. I really don't even think I've ever had an artichoke till I moved out here. And then first time eating an artichoke was pretty embarrassing. You kind of have to get down the...
Well, you wonder how somebody thought, how somebody thought that they could actually eat them.
I might have been one of those people, Marta, so.
And the artichokes are also one of the foods that's very difficult to pair with wine. And if the next time you have an artichoke, taste the artichoke and then just have a glass of water or a sip of water, and you'll notice how that the water tastes sweet. So it really affects the flavor of the wine.
Interesting. Well, It's not just ag that we got here. If you're
Wow.
not jealous yet, there's a bunch of other things Monterey has to offer. And again, we're not trying to make you jealous, but we know a lot of people couldn't make it out here. A lot of people that are tuning in actually have never even been to Monterey. And so we've got other cool things. We've got Pebble Beach. We've got the
Aquarium.
racetrack, the aquarium. There's so much. I don't really know too much about the racetrack, but I am a member. I think I'm still a member at the aquarium. And
It's a Formula One for all of you. And yes, that's Pebble Beach. We have had the US Open here a couple of times. It used to be the Crosby and now it's the AT&T. But there are some beautiful golf courses to play. And the aquarium is just, it's world class. So there really is, it's just a lot to see and do here. We've had so many films, like you said, Big Little Lies was filmed here. Tom Hanks filmed Turner and Hooch. And for a while we had Clint Eastwood as the mayor of Carmel. So, it's pretty interesting.
All right, I'm trying to read through the questions. Okay, so we're done. Monterey, I think we've sufficiently told everybody how awesome we are and that they all need to come visit when the time is right.
And we hope you do soon.
Yes, we miss you guys. Come back to us. But I want to there's a few questions that I would like to answer before I get onto the emailed questions. So looks like Nani asked, what type of food goes best with Thai food?
Thai food, especially if it's spicy Thai, the heat, I would go with something that had a slight amount of residual sugar, either something like our Gewürztraminer or something like the Odd Lot White, because that little bit of sugar balances out the heat. In the same reason that if you happen to drop too many chili flakes in your spaghetti sauce, you could throw in a teaspoon of sugar and that would balance it out. So I would go with something that had a little bit of residual sugar.
Okay. And then Jessica says, what do you say to those people who put I'm guessing Monterey Pinots down or California Pinots down because they're not like French Pinots and they aren't made to that standard?
I think worldwide there is good wine and there is bad wine. And I don't think that you could say that the French have a different standard than the Australians or the Americans or anywhere else that Pinot Noir is grown. I think in some ways, a lot of Pinot Noir in Europe, a lot of natural fermentations. Sometimes these can lead to off aromas, things that that we as in New World winemakers might consider a fault, but it's not considered to be a fault in Europe. So I think a lot of it depends on the style of Pinot Noir that you like. And I mean, there's just within California and, well, I should say on the whole West Coast between Washington, Oregon, and California, the Pinots, the range in Pinot Noirs range from high alcohol, heavily concentrated to something light and fresh and tastes like fresh raspberries. So I think it's not so much about the country where it's grown. It's about what the style that you like and finding the style that you like to drink.
Okay. And I do want to get to some of the emailed questions, but I'll do one more. Why do some wines have a tin can taste when they're first tasted?
I haven't come across that. Did
we stump you, Marta?
Well, I mean, some people think that there are some metallic tastes in wine, but I don't know really what that would be. I would have to know what the person that asked the question, if they were referring to a specific wine or something. But there's no reason that unless it came out of a can, that it would have maybe a metallic taste. And even the canned wines now, they're lined. So not that I've tasted that many, but when they first came out, there was definitely an off taste. But it could, I just don't know in reference to have. I don't have a reference point for that. Sorry.
Okay, we will get onto emails. Although my mother-in-law asked where I got these earrings, and they were, yes, mother-in-law from my father-in-law. So I am wearing my Christmas earrings. Okay, so we will get on to some of the questions people emailed in. One of the questions was, how long does a wine need to breathe after opening?
So breathing is all about incorporation of air into a wine. And I ask people when they have a bottle like this, okay, how big is that opening? Not very, right? It's not
It's a
really
good size to pour some wine into my glass.
Yeah, there you go. So you're aerating your wine right now just by pouring it into the glass. So there was for a long time, people used to pull the cork out, set it on the table, and then, oh, we've got to wait 3 or 4 hours before, we can possibly drink this. And I asked them, so how much air is getting in through the neck of that bottle? And it's really not very much. And then I asked them, what's the wine bottle doing? Is it physically breathing? Is it doing anything like that? No, it's not. So the only way you can really get air into a bottle of wine is by either pouring it into a glass and swirling it or decanting it. And that decanting it will allow the wine to incorporate some air, and it allows the wine to open up and allows you to smell it more readily.
This is my question.
Do you get one?
I do, because, well, somebody emailed, but I want to know too, because I feel like everyone has a different answer. Once it's opened, how long is it good? If it's not like Coravin or something, like a red and a white.
Well, you kind of have to evaluate your drinking habits.
The question, my mom really, she keeps a white wine in the fridge for like a week and a half, and she still drinks it after it's been opened.
So
Sorry, Mom.
most people will probably not notice a difference after a couple of days. If you opened a bottle of wine, maybe had half the bottle, put the screw cap back on or put the cork back in, the next day or so, you're probably not going to notice a difference. Now, if you're talking 10 days, something like that, you might consider a method to try and save the wine, because it's really about how much oxygen gets in the bottle. So there's a couple of things you can do. One of them is to buy a 375 bottle and just keep it around the house. And then when you have half a bottle, you just pour half the bottle into the 375. And it's protected. It's like a full bottle. You can't keep it forever, but at least it's been protected from a lot of oxygen. The other thing you can do is there are the vacuum van that suck the air out. And then probably one of the more interesting techniques is you snag some marbles or some flower arranging glass beads. And then when you have the bottle partway down, you dump in a few marbles. And then when you have another glass, you dump in a few more marbles. And what you're doing is constantly raising the fill height and pushing the oxygen out of the bottle so the bottle stays full. So I don't think you should keep a bottle longer than a week without, actually longer than about 4 or 5 days without doing something to try and protect it.
Yeah. Or just drink the bottle, right?
Just drink the bottle. That's why I said you have to evaluate your drinking habits.
Okay. I'll do 2 more questions because I know half the reason most people are still sticking around is for the free raffle prize at the end. How long should you hold on to a bottle to age it? And does screw cap affect the aging?
They think it has been researched that the average aging time for most people to hold a bottle is 4 hours. That's the time they buy the bottle, get it home, make dinner, and consume it. Most people don't keep wine bottles like someone like I do. And even I am guilty of keeping wine past its prime because you bought it on vacation or somebody gave it to you and it's sentimental. Most white wine, I think, should probably be consumed within the 6 to 10 year range, depending on the wine. If it's an aromatic white, like our Sauvignon Blanc, I would want you to drink that up within 2 or 3 years. But a Chardonnay that has some oak and has more structure could easily last in the 6 to 10 year range. Pinot Noir, which doesn't have a lot of tannin holding it together. And tannin is, again, is a structural component that helps keep the wine. Pinot Noirs, I think, 10 years maybe. And Cabernets, I mean, when you read about all these old auction wines, from the, 1950s or even earlier, those are all Bordeaux blends of some sort. Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Franc, that type of thing.
Okay, last question, we'll end on this. I didn't get to everybody's Q&As, so if I didn't get to it, we'll make sure to email you guys the answer.
I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, but last question. Stuck on a desert island, we'll say there's a fridge. What wine and a book would you take? That was the emailed question.
One book and one wine?
Well, it was 3 books and 3 wines that was emailed to us, but I can't come up with 3. So as many as you want to come up with.
Well, I came up with 3 books just because I figured that I'd need really long books and books that would entertain me. So the first was the complete work of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which would be Sherlock Holmes. The second would be Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts, it's a really fascinating story. If you've never read it, it's about a convict that hides out in the slums of Mumbai. And then Chelsea and I were joking about this earlier. I would probably bring something like War and Peace, again, because it's a really long book and it would keep me occupied for a long time. When I was traveling years ago, one of my boyfriends took War and Peace, and because he didn't want to carry more than one book. And so he would read a few hundred pages and then he would rip those pages off and throw them out. And the book kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. As far as wines go, and if I had a refrigerator, I'm probably going for the aromatic white wines, because to me they're more refreshing. I wouldn't get tired of them as fast. I could probably drink more of those probably too, but that's so aromatic white wines, some bubbles, and then I'd have to throw in a Cabernet or a Pinot Noir just to be able to have a little bit of variety.
Okay. Very nice. So like I said, any questions we did not get to, we will go ahead and email you the responses. I hate that we can't answer everything, but it's nice having that many questions that we can do that. So again, most of you are on for our raffle prize. What are you going to win? And you have to be on here. So if you're not on here, we're gonna draw again, and whoever's on here gets it. So don't worry, you hanging in for 45 minutes, you guys hanging in for 45 minutes does not go unappreciated. So let me see here what we have. Our raffle box is going to be a 2-bottle wooden box, shied logoed, a really, really beautiful stainless steel tumbler set, and then our wine bottle candles. So that candle too, it's really neat. We recycled it, we poured it in the tasting room, and then we recycled it and turned it into a candle. I believe it's 100% soy, all different flavors, but the retail value is $135. I picked this little box. I made this box because this is what I wish I was getting. So if anybody I know is looking to get me a Christmas gift, here you go.
Hint, hint.
Right. So let's go with a little drum roll. I should have had us come up with some music for that next time, I know. But I'm gonna go like this. All right, and then I'm gonna close my eyes. Can you see that my eyes are closed? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna pick a winner. Okay. And the winner, I don't know if she's on here. We might get to do it again. I think she is. Catherine Burr is the winner, and I believe she's still on it. I think she made it through the 45 minutes listening to us talk.
Congratulations, Catherine.
So Catherine, you will get this awesome package. We'll figure out how to get it to you if you're local, or we'll ship it to you if you're not local. But yay, awesome package, very exciting. Yep, she just said, yay. So that pretty much wraps up our tasting today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, even if you did not win. Personally, I would just like to say thank you to all of you who have been here the whole time, who have joined us, and thank you for being a part of our family and supporting us through everything. Have a safe and super happy holiday. And Marta, if you would like to close us out.
I also would like to thank you all for sharing your evening with us, because not only was it festive, but it was delicious as well. And I wish you the warmest wishes for a safe and happy holidays. And we look forward to sharing a glass of wine with you sometime soon. So cheers to all of you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and best wishes for the new year.
Cheers,
Bye,
guys. Thank you.